So here we go. So first of all, welcome. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate you being here. What is this? This is the Credit Union Tableau User Group. If you're not familiar, this group has been around for a while. It used to be run by another group, and we kind of picked it up last year. And we're really hoping to kind of build this community. There's so many Credit Union Tableau users out there, and I know we have a lot of the same, challenges, and we're always like working on similar types of projects. I know some of you probably already know each other, and if you don't, this is a great opportunity to get to know some people, and hopefully, and this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but hopefully, we'll get to see some of you at the Tableau conference as well if you're going, but more to come on that in a minute. So just a quick little review of the agenda. We'll do some quick intros, tell you about how we're going to use Mentimeter. That's like a little bit of a live survey tool that we have. Talk about what is this user group? What do we want it to look like going forward? We really want you guys to, have a place that you're comfortable with and want to share and collaborate with each other. Talk about Tableau Conference. Got a couple different use cases for you guys. And if we have time to get into it, we'll go into a little bit of a, extra discussion on Gen AI, which I'm sure is a topic you've all heard about recently. So just a quick intro to myself and Jess. So we both work at Architecture. We're a technology company that helps credit unions like you use your data, primarily using Tableau. We have, our own platform. This isn't the time or place to like tell you all about that, but know that we are kind of like where, credit unions and data intersect. And if you ever have any questions or want to get to know us better, feel free to reach out to us. Jess, do you want to kind of do like a quick little intro?
Hi, Jessica Tompat. I've been at architecture. It'll be 2 years this July. Prior to that, I was at a credit union for almost 11 years. Learned Tableau when we implemented Arcalytics and went through the the Tableau training path, other courses. Just really love it and have lots of fun. I work on our product team, mostly just coming up with ideas, and we have a wonderful visitor who's also on this call, Amy, who does all the things in Tableau. So we have lots of fun solving credit union challenges. So it's a pleasure to be here and get to talk through how everyone is using Tableau to solve challenges.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess, for that. And I just want to like throw one more quick reminder out to everyone. Like we encourage participation. There's lots of different ways. I believe, the chat is turned on in here. There should be a Q&A thing. If not, feel free to raise your hand. You can come off mute and just say, hey, I wanted to ask a quick question. The more we have you guys involved, the better I think this user group is for everyone. So please jump in anytime. So first, I'm going to tell you about Mentimeter just real quick. So you'll see as we kind of go through our slides, we'll kind of jump back and forth to some questions. So you can join and participate on these either using your desktop or your phone. There will be a URL and a code. So you'll just type that in, on whatever device is easier. I like to use my phone so that I don't have to like switch back and forth or anything. And some of these questions are like multiple choice or they're open-ended. And feel free to participate however you would like. So one of the things we wanted to do to kind of like kick this off is just kind of like come back. I think last time we had some great presenters, and then this time we were like, oh well, we don't have a ton of content necessarily planned, but we really want to get everybody talking, discussing, working together on these. So we're trying a little bit of a different format where we'll have some presentations for you guys, but we also want to get your input and feedback and try that out for us as well. I don't think I necessarily need to read through the entire definition, but know that we're all here for kind of like a common interest, goal, or expertise, right? In this case, it's credit unions and Tableau. That's what kind of connects all of us. So please feel free to get to know each other, support, collaborate with each other. There's tons of different resources we have access to. So I hope that, you guys find this beneficial and want to join, each quarter that we host one of these. So I'm going to jump to our first question. So you see at the top here is the URL. So you can join at menti.com and use the code that's on your screen. So the cool thing about this program is as responses come in, you'll start to see it like populate information. And this is just a cool way to kind of take a little bit of a pulse. What has been your involvement or participation with user groups like this? Are you involved with other user groups? Are you used to presenting at other ones? Or is this your first one maybe?
While people are answering that, Devin, I know I thought it was an interesting conversation when you and I were working on some of these questions, because you had said like user group like this a couple of times and I didn't really understand. And it was recognizing that coming from the credit union side, there aren't that many different kinds. So the kind of technology professional ones are the only ones that I'd interacted with. And that really helped me understand a little bit better about like what it is. I don't know any other credit unions that are on the Scimitar platform, but I remember there's we called it SMUG, like an email user group. Anyone that's on that definitely knows it. And it's very useful. It's like emails all the time, people helping solve challenges. So we'd really love for it to be that collaborative of a space for Tableau for credit unions. Um, so that's it.
And I know so Tableau, um, itself, recently moved to this Bevy platform, right? That we're all kind of getting familiar with. So what they did was they used to have an old user group and they basically said everyone starting over will give you, an import of users that were registered, but it's up to you to like build and grow this community. But just in case anyone isn't aware, there's also a Tableau, Credit Union Tableau like forum where you can go and you can post and you can ask questions and everything. So know that that resource exists as well. I don't think they're quite as like connected as we would like to see necessarily, but if and when we do the follow up after this, I'll see if I can throw a link into that as well, so you guys can check that out. So we got some good results coming in. This is great. Thank you all for jumping in and putting in some answers. And overwhelmingly, we're all pretty new to this, right? So the cool thing about this is that we're all going to get to kind of like shape how this user group moves forward. That can be a combination of virtual events or in-person events, when we have something like Tableau conference to rally around. Lori, I saw, you just asked a question, how do we get access to the forum? So I don't know if anyone has it. I can check in a minute and find a link, but we can just drop a link straight in the chat. Maybe Eric or Jess, you could help me out with that real quick. So I'm going to switch back over to our slides just so we can keep moving in the meantime. But that's awesome. So that leads us into the next big thing that's coming up, right? Tableau conference. I'm sure you guys have heard about this. Maybe some of you have been before. Maybe you're going for the first time this year. Personally, I haven't been, but I think you're going out this year, right, Jess? Have
Yes,
you
I'll
have
be
you been
there.
before?
I have not. I am thrilled to be going for the first time. I had looked at it in 2020. I really wanted to go and didn't get to do any of the traveling I planned on, but really excited to go. We definitely want to do something. I think we'll have some other folks from um, architecture as well. I know we have some veteran Tableauers on our team.
So this is coming up pretty quick, right? This is about 2 months away now. So I'm curious to hear, who else from this group is going there. So I'm going to pull up one more question for us that we can kind of look at. So moving to the next one. So do you plan to attend Tableau conference this year? I'm going to go ahead and select nope, because I'm not going to be there. I will be at CUNA GAC next week, and I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, it looks like, overwhelmingly so far, not a whole lot of people going this year, which is interesting to me. I think, I guess the question would be, what does the audience at Tableau conference look like? I think a lot of it is like, power users. So it'd be interesting to see, what it's like this year.
Just got a request about hotels for the conference. I'm going to post your question over in the user group, or if you want to, you're also welcome to, and maybe people can add their thoughts and comments I'll get a link for that in before we wrap up today. It's always good to collaborate on exactly these types of things. Well, if anyone else does end up going, please definitely look out for us.
And good call, Jess, on sharing the forum over there. Appreciate that. Is that the user group? Okay, so I think you might have shared the user group, but there's also a community forum. That's a little, is that?
There's a link to the community forum on the user
Okay.
group page. So
Oh, on the
they're
user
both
group
there.
page.
Yep.
Gotcha,
Here's the
gotcha.
second one. And so I'll put the comment in this one. Great.
All right, moving on. All right, Ozzy. So we have a guest from IQ Credit Union that's with us today, Ozzy Benitez. Ozzy is a senior data analyst over at IQ Credit Union. Ozzy, are you here? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ozzy. Let's see. I've been using Tableau for the last like 5 years. So I love it. It's an amazing tool. I think it's a very challenging tool if you've never used it before. But I like to think of it as Excel on steroids. It does a lot of cool things. And when I first started using it, I had no experience. In school, I went to the Tableau headquarters and thought it was pretty cool, but I've never used it after that until I started in a credit union. And so I started playing with it a little bit. Had a great mentor that would give me show and tells every week, so I could learn something new, which was great for me. And one of the things that I like doing with all of my dashboards is be able to provide another tab where users can go in and view all the records that make up whatever visualization is. So if it's a bar graph, they can click on it and look at all the records that make up that measure or metric. And I think one of the cool things in doing that is everyone has the ability to do that. And now you don't limit it to Explorer users, because explorers are the only ones that can see the raw data behind. And so in order to be able to have everyone see it, I decided, well, let's create another tab where every user can see the raw data. But the one thing that I didn't like was when I created that, you put your measures and dimensions on the rows, but you still have that ABC dimension on the right side where it says ABC. And I don't like that. I don't personally don't like that because it doesn't have a label on the top. And so it just shows a value in there. And so in order to remove that, I've added all these steps that you can take to be able to remove that. And now visually, it looks great. You have a report that people can use and not have to ask me, hey, why is there an ABC column there? So that's been very helpful for all my users, and it avoids questions. It's a very simple one, but I think it was one of my first ones that I didn't know how to do, and so my mentor definitely gave me the tips for this. But yeah.
Such a simple thing, Ozzy, but like, I know I had a headache with that, just wanting to make it look that way and thought I was crazy. I think Amy, I asked you to help me with that one time when I was on the client side. So funny. Has anyone else ever ran into this? I saw nodding going along as I saw you, Clarence, you're giving it yeah, that's so cool one. So anyone
Yeah.
else run into that?
Yeah, I appreciate him showing me that because I did. You know how you do your research, you go through YouTube. It's like, okay, I got it, and then by the time you make the next Tableau report, you're like, okay, what did I do? And then you go to a different video, but it gets you close, but it wasn't completely gone like you did on the first times. So yeah, I appreciate it. I did a screenshot. I'm saving that as well. Thank you so much, Ozzy.
Oh, perfect. yeah, it's definitely helpful. And I like that, it removes the lines, but it doesn't remove the lines for the other measures here. So it's
I
very
love that.
helpful.
From like, I know, Ozzy, we're always chatting about data governance in Tableau, but like wanting to be able to surface up more data, but not give somebody the right to get everything underneath. This is really helpful. It's not pretty. They're, the trash boards, but I know that's a cool thing for accessibility of your users. So that's great.
Perfect.
Dana, it looks like this is something you've must have run into before too. And I know Dana has, presented on the Tableau user group before. I don't know if you feel like, saying hi real quick, Dana. But we really appreciated having you on last time. So looks like you had a little bit of a recommendation here as well.
Yeah, this is something I've run into a couple times, and I'd love to talk to you more, Ozzy, because we get the same request a lot that people want to see, well, this bar chart is really cool, but can I see all of the stuff underneath that? So my own question, do you have like just a separate tab they can go to and use the same filters, or can they click on the bar and it pops them out? But as far as this one, yes, there are a couple different ways, and I love Carrie. It looks like Carrie suggested the polygon one in the chat too, but it's pretty cool that in Tableau there's a couple different ways to do the same thing, and it kind of just depends on personal preference and what it looks like in the end, how you need it for your end users.
Yeah. I do create a different tab, and I use the actions. So if they select a bar, I'll add in a filter where they click. I rename the tab and call it like data. And so the filters, when you select that bar graph or specific bar, it automatically filters all data to show you just that particular data set and takes you to the additional tab that I created with everything listed already. So I think that's pretty handy. And it gives them the visibility of what's making up those numbers as well.
Yeah.
So, and it's a good validation tool for me.
Yeah.
If they come back and say, "Hey, this number doesn't look right," which happens quite
all
a bit.
the time.
Yeah. So I'll tell them, "Hey, tell me why this doesn't look right to you, or the records that you're seeing, they're not seem right to you, or can you give me examples of records that are missing?" Because that's very helpful as well.
A quick question, Ozzy, and then maybe you've dealt with this in the same way, Dana. Some challenges I know that Amy and I have discussed before. How do you address when it's a large, very, very large data set if they don't filter? Like if you just go to that data tab, is it always everything? Or do they know not to click on it if you've got it? Like, I think we're dealing with transactions, for example, which I know you've done a ton of reporting on. How have you approached that to not have, a very lagging data if it's not filtered?
Yeah, for that, I'd need transactions, for example. Yes, those are very large data sets. So I generally, if they really want raw data, I'll create a tab, but limited to like the top 100 records, because it does create some lag, and that's not a good user experience. And I will add that note in there where I say, if you want raw data, be aware that you'll only be able to see top 100 records. Just because who wants to go through millions of records for transactions? It just doesn't really make sense. But for anything else or everything else, it's pretty simple to do. There's not that many records. But yeah, transactions. Not sure that would be a great place for something like this, since we're talking about millions of records.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure. But I want to see the detail. Go ahead. Somebody else is coming off mute.
It's not a great place for this kind of dashboard, but we've gotten requests for it on multiple occasions. So typically what I do is I will put up kind of default filters that limit it to a certain thing. And then kind of like you said, Ozzy, I have a note on there that if you take all the filters off, or if you pick too many things, there will be a long lag time on here. But I have it available for everything. It also helps on filters, like if it's a select multiple from a dropdown, there's a customization on the menu that you can create an apply button. And that way, instead of as you click each one, it trying to load all of it, you can click as many as you want and then hit apply and it only tries to load it once. So that at least helps a little bit, but it's good to know that other people are getting requests to see trash boards. That's a new phrase. I had not heard that one before, and it makes a lot of sense. I feel that.
I got that from our sales team. They were former Tableau people, so that's what they call it very lovingly when you just build the Excel report in Tableau.
Mhm.
And so, you know, from I know like from a product design standpoint, being a former credit union person, that's, you know, I keep referring to Amy, who's our wonderful visitor on the call. Like, it's always this conversation where she's got such a beautiful visitor perspective and she's like, but we should make this beautiful. I'm like, but they also want to see the spreadsheet. And she's like, but that's so not beautiful. And I'm like, but they want both. And lo and behold, we'll push that data education and evolution through credit unions, but it's great to have this community talk about how do you integrate both, because we know that our users want also to see they want to see the spreadsheet underneath it as their comfort, because it looks like the Excel chart under the graph to them, and that's what they just need. So anyone else deal with transactions? Like any cool ways to get through massive transaction data sets in the credit union space? Jen, we look forward to when you dig into more stuff at ORNL, because I know you guys have done cool stuff with transactions. So you'll get there. You have homework to go back and find out.
I have seen a very cool transaction heat map. I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah.
But transaction heat map and hourly. One of my team members is working on that right now.
I love those. I created one and it's broken down by half hours. And then I created a parameter that allows you to change it to look at it, you know, between like 1 minute or 20 minutes intervals. So people can look at what's happening during certain times of the day. And those are very cool.
Let's chat about that, Ozzy. Some ideas.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mackenzie, you talking about, nice to see you on here, summarizing and rolling up transactions. That's some stuff you've had challenges with, or you have some cool ideas in Tableau? No, you guys are just getting into Tableau. I won't put them on the spot like that.
That's okay. Just
Very fun.
yeah.
Go ahead, Devin. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, give her an opportunity. Yeah. Do you want to take that in the chat, Jess, real quick? Read it out for us.
How to display the data without details. Oh, awesome. So I'm actually in the middle of writing out some use cases on this. So I would love to talk about this, how to display the data without the details. So one of the ways is the heat maps. So I really love that, looking at it, grouping by the timing. So I've heard a lot this year, and I know Devin has some other slides on industry trends and things like that, but really trying to crunch the operational efficiency, make sure we're only staffing to what we absolutely have to be staffed to. When I was at the credit union, we had a similar thing. You know, somebody calls out every day, right? And you got to figure out who you got to send, where you got to send them, and figure that out. So looking at a heat map like that is a great one. That Mackenzie, I would summarize and roll it up by the branches and the action codes. We would do that kind of like a pivot table looking, and adding some things like that. Another thing I was just looking through, something I did at the beginning of COVID, was looking by channel. I think ORNL also does a lot of stuff like this, but looking at the trends by grouping the channels together to see like that. Without the details, again, it's just like the types of transactions. So the biggest challenge with transactions I've seen is grouping them together, like how you want to call it. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of standardization around that. But anyone else want to talk?
Awesome. Yeah. If anyone, has anything else to add or wants to jump in, please do so. We'll give you, like 30 seconds to a minute real quick. And Amy, I'm going to tee you up in a second to jump into our next use case here in a second.
My name's Jackie. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Jackie.
Hey. Yeah, for transactions, I would just say a big thing that the challenges for us is in like the money movement internally, like from one account to another account, and then money movement within the same account. So like coming up with names of like what type of transaction that is, you know, because it's internal. It's all internal to the credit union, but internal to that one account versus going to another account. Does that make sense?
I think for everyone, that is a challenge.
I don't know. Do you guys call
yeah.
it anything? Do you have like, do you have a name for the differences?
No, I know we
yeah.
struggle with that. We're on DNA Core, and we don't really have a transaction code for transfers. It's all just deposits and withdrawals, and it is a problem when we don't want to consider this money movement when we're closing out a CD and opening a new one or something. We don't really want to consider that money movement, and it's hard to exclude it.
Yeah. We call them transfers as well, but we're right now categorizing transfer in account and transfer out or transfer to other accounts. So
I've seen really more on the data side than on the Tableau side solves for this one, but on the Epicus core, they're marked as transfers, so you can exclude them. On the DNA, we ended up, it was some custom thing I was working on, looking for, there's a couple codes in the transaction records that do show like which ones they're related to, and you can kind of order. It's the same thing as voids that are real weird, where you can kind of get them together lined up to be one, but it's like figuring out that kind of layer on it to do it. But for transfers, just something else, I don't know, and this is kind of could be Tableau or could be, but it has to be done at the data level. We did a custom field in Epicus for new money. So when somebody opened a CD, the FSR would fill out the new money. Our main driving behind that was so we could automate incentive reporting in Tableau, but we did the same thing from our loan system. The loan system was way better at it because we had it pull from the credit report, if they're, or from the system directly, whatever that balance is, and then just subtracts whatever the new money really is. For shares, there's a little more manual entry because, there's some people they want you to withdraw the money and hand them a check, and then they'll give it back to you because that's how they've been doing CDs since they've been a member since before you were born. I got that a lot as a teller. So anyway, I'm talking again, guys. As a user group, you guys talk.
We have the same issue with new money. That has been a hot topic lately. How much new money is coming in and trying to figure out what is actually new money and what isn't. So we had to do stuff. We have 2 developers on our BI team, and they did a whole bunch of stuff in our data warehouse to try and custom flag it, looking at the account owner's total balances on record the day before the account opening and the day after the account opening to see if it was new money or just transferred from one of their other accounts. So no good answer. And we're on a DNA core right now too, and we don't have anything to kind of name the different groups of transactions. I can't even get people in different departments to agree on what things should be called around transactions. So no solutions, but in the same boat.
We rely a lot on the team members actually filling out the opening fund source and doing it correctly. And I kind of shock people every now and then if we're doing a CD special and they haven't filled that out. I'll call them and say, hey, you didn't fill that out. How did you know that? Well, I kind of know a lot. So fill it out or you're going to get a call from me every time, that kind of thing. But I can't do it across the board every day. But I think, as we train them and give them feedback and let them know it does show up in the reporting. Here's a Tableau report. And like you said, incentives, you're going to see, you need this to say new money, or you need this to say existing account, that kind of thing. But again, we're at their mercy of filling it out correctly and at all.
Are you surfacing up any challenges like that in your data to your users in Tableau?
Occasionally, but I think we have, like I said, with feedback, we're getting them to do this regularly, and it's working pretty well, but it took a while.
We're in the same boat. We have some data quality dashboards. So as we see issues like this, we'll come up, and if they can tell us that every account should have X, Y, and Z, we can put it up for their QC team to kind of go through and be able to check. And then they can really show people in not quite real time, but a day late, like the ones they didn't open correctly. And they have started tying a lot of that to incentives and bonuses and how many, you know, new accounts you open, how many referrals get closed, all that kind of stuff. And if they don't put the data in there, there's no way we can tell. So I think it's been really good for like data literacy and data education across the credit union, but it has been challengingly slow.
Congratulations on what you've done so far, though. That's great.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome. Well, that was great. Amy, I know you prepared something for us, so maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, Amy works on the architecture team. She's been working in Tableau for a long time, very experienced. So Amy, take it away.
Sure. Hi, guys. I've been loving this conversation. Yeah, I work on the architecture team working on our product called Arcalytics. So we have, we're building a lot of dashboards for credit union users. And I was going to talk about some date filtering because I feel like there's so many options. I've really enjoyed this conversation because I think the crux of it is that there are so many different ways to do things and usually everything is possible. But finding it sometimes can be, you know, an exploration. So we traditionally on our dashboards have an option to either filter something by relative date. So that's like saying, I want to see the data from the last 3 years, or by doing a date range. So I want to see, you know, January 1st to January 31st and not anything after it. But we've been finding a lot more use cases recently where people want the option to choose whether or not they do it by relative date or range of dates. So I wanted to show you something that we have done to get around that question. So here's our user story. So as a data analyst, I want to filter a heavily used dashboard with both a relative date filter and a range of dates so that I can give users the flexibility to filter the data based on the date in multiple ways. So the use case that we saw is kind of in my example here. I want people to be able to create a custom view. So that's when they save a view so that if I want to look at I want a dashboard delivered to my inbox on the 1st of every month that shows me last month, and it will always be last month. That would be like a saved view with a subscription on it. So we want to be able to do that using a relative date filter, but also we want them to have the opportunity to have a range of dates. So maybe say, I want to see the last 6 months. Actually, I really just want to see March. So being able to have that flexibility was something that we have recently built kind of into a dashboard. We've done this in the past by having a relative date filter and then maybe would have a trend graph and that would be an action. So if you filter to a certain number of dates, you could do it that way. I think that would be the next most comparable option, but we really wanted it in the filter so that they could, again, set it as a custom view and not need to have a chart, a time trend on every dashboard. So we have this currently in only 1 or 2 of our dashboards, but I've been thinking about it more since we've built it. I didn't love it at first, but kind of have grown to like it more. So I made this little example using Superstore sales, which, you know, is the built-in data set in Tableau desktop that a lot of visitors know and love. So how we did it, and I'm going to demo this. I did some of the steps for us, but in the picture, you'll see that in the top left, there's in my viz, there's a ship date that shows the last 6 years, but then also a fine tuning date range. And they actually do work together the way we've set it up. So I can go through how I can show my screen now. All right, so I'm in Tableau Desktop and I have done the first couple of steps, which I wanted to filter. I want to filter on ship date. So the first step is to duplicate your field. So right clicking on it and saying duplicate. That makes a copy of it. So if you see it's a calculated field, the calculation is just ship date. And then adding those both to your filters. So the first one you add as a relative date filter, which is this first option. And I want to set it to something the last 3 years, the last 6 years, and hit OK. And then the copy you drag up to filters as well. And you set it up. Your instinct will be to set it up as a range of dates, but that's actually not what you'd want to do. You'd want to set it up as special and set it to all dates. And I'll show you why in a second, but that's kind of the initial configuration. Once you have it applied to, you know, everything on your dashboard, all the sheets that you want to, you can come over here, you would add them to your dashboard. These are just the two. And when I drag on the filter that says all dates, you configure it to be, see how it says special, it's still on special. You configure it to be a range of dates. And that is how it will appear. When you set it to range of dates, it's going to kind of create the set that matches your relative date. And that's why it's risky to do it that way. That's why you want to do it as all dates. And then it will show everything, and then it will respond to the other one. So the other thing that you'll need to do is set it to only relevant values. So now you'll see that I can't go back any further than my relative date filter is here. So if I were to come in here and change this to be the last 3 months, did I do it? Did I do, yes, I did. It's just a weird date. I forgot this data set is delayed, but it ends in January of 2023, which is why I was confused. But it updates the range here to reflect that. So they wouldn't be able, the worry when doing it this way is that they'd set, let's go back to all values in the database. They would say last 3 months, and then they would drag this, and then they'd get a blank dashboard because those two periods don't intersect, right? So that would be a bad user experience. So when we set it to all only relevant values, we kind of eliminate their ability to or a user's ability to get themselves in trouble and be confused about why is this blank. I didn't want it to look at the last 3 months or something like that. In this case, it's obvious that they need to expand their range to do that. And so we put this fine tune option here. So they have the same header, but then we say fine tune. So pick your period and then fine tune the range within that if you want to. But yeah, that's really how we've kind of given people extra options. We are finding people use a lot of the heavy dashboards to make subscriptions. So they want to subscribe to something that shows the previous month, for example, and always show that. But then we also want to give them the flexibility of picking a discrete range. So yeah. Any questions on that? Thoughts or ways that you've done it differently?
I have a quick question. This is Glenn from GitSap.
Hello.
Instead of creating 2 separate date filters, does Tableau support or allow users to change the style? Like, for example, you start with the relative date, but are users allowed to change that to range? Because I've seen that on other.
Wonderful?
I've seen that on other platforms, but not with Tableau. I'm just wondering if they will support.
Yeah. So that's why we've had to do this. They don't. What I think would be amazing is if they exposed this menu to everybody, right? Or gave the option to expose it, because it seems like they've already built it. They just need to be able to expose it to the end user, but they don't have that.
Yeah.
I think if you were another way, I guess I just thought of when you said something was, would be to do the new dynamic zone visibility and have it controlled by a parameter. So maybe you would have a parameter to say, do you want a relative date or a range of dates? And then depending on what they click, show or hide in the object, which I actually hadn't considered until now. That would be kind of cool too. As long as they still worked together. I guess you would still need filters. Sorry. I probably shouldn't have gone through this rabbit hole now, but can't help it. Yeah, the shorter answer is no, and I wish they did.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. If anyone, has run into something similar or, has kind of like a follow-up question, we'll give you just a minute to kind of jump in before we move to the next part. So I've got another kind of question for you guys. So you've seen a couple different use cases, presented. Ozzy jumped in and, kind of talked us through one, and then Amy with another. So this is more of just kind of like a, an open forum time to kind of, what have you been working on with Tableau recently? Has there been any specific challenges you've had? Is there anything you feel particularly like proud of that you're just like excited about? Anything like that is perfect. And I know it's been a minute since we did our last question, so I think we have a few people kind of just jumping back on. If you joined us recently, you can, engage with these questions. You go to menti.com and you type in the code at the top. So anything that's top of mind for you that you want to jump in. So after we get a few of these kind of, popping up, Jess, I'd love if you, take one that kind of sticks out to you, or Amy, of course, and we can kind of open that up for the group.
We almost did a tip on the manual updating scalable. The way we make things scalable, a lot of times when I hear that, I think about dates. So that if you have a calc that computes what last year is, maybe you'd say if year of date equals 2016 or what year is it? 2023, then last year, something like that. That's usually where we hear a lot of manually updating issues. And what we always suggest for that is to make sure to not key off, like not hard code any dates or any numbers, and instead key off of something like the today calculation, which will always give you today's date. So if you say, if, the year of today -1 equals the year of your loan origination date or something, that will help in that case. Or even better, we have the date that our data updates in our data, and we always key off of that date to do relative dates kind of in calculations. As one thought. Someone else can jump in.
Yeah, Jess, are any of these sticking out to you?
Well, I mean, definitely what Amy was just talking about on the scalable, the cleaning up the 300 plus reports right now. I mean, just trying to not have to maintain it. It's the same thing about making things scalability and just trying to get users to do more with cool filters like what Amy was just showing, where you can get more reports out of one. Would love to have that be a topic in the future, like how you combined lots of different reports into dashboards, right? Moving people away from thinking about flat reports and start thinking about analytics, like going from the top aggregated data down into the detail, not wanting to start with the detail and then come back up to the aggregation. I think that'd be a fun topic. On the credit card and debit card, definitely transaction data is messy. We've seen that before. I don't know if Ozzy, if you have anything to illuminated on that. We just did a webinar. I think it's up on the Arcasite 7, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, on
Yep.
how Ozzy was doing some interchange tracking. So definitely a cool one to maybe talk about in the future as well.
Yeah, I can just read it real quick, and if anyone wants to jump in on how they've kind of done this before, but challenged with creating a dashboard to show how members are using their credit and debit cards. The transactional data can be messy. Cleanup to categorize them hasn't been easy even with Tableau prep. Has anyone ran into a similar challenge or have some kind of insights they'd love to share?
We've had similar challenges. I'm wondering, does anybody use Visa data? If anyone's using Visa, does anyone use data from Visa to build dashboards or do anything? Full disclosure, we don't, because it's mind-blowingly expensive to get data from them.
We use PSEU for credit card transactions for the interchange income portion, and the files that we get have the card number. So I was able to use the card number and join it to our numbers in Scimitar, and then connect that back to the account level. So we were able to clearly see what credit card types or debit card types gave us the most interchange income over time. And so that was pretty cool. Accounting was really happy to see that. Prior to that, they didn't have that capability, so they were just seeing interchange income as a summary. That they didn't have the ability to look at what card types gave them the most interchange income.
Very cool.
And I just saw Justin shared something in the chat, so it sounds like Justin was on that webinar and he took it back and went and built something similar. So I love to see that. That's really that everyone here helping each other. That feels good inside. So that's awesome, Justin.
I love that.
And I'm kind of just giving us, like a little bit of a time check here. So we have about 10 minutes left. I mean, we can jump into more of these. I did kind of prep, a little bit of stuff about like Chat GPT, but we don't necessarily have to jump into that this time. It's more just kind of generic, like, have you used it before? I can jump over to the question, if you guys want to, jump in. This is something just that I've personally been using in my day to day, but I'm more just kind of in the, digital marketing side of the business. I like using this to kind of like give me a list of ideas or kind of doing that first draft a little bit. We even put like, a couple slides together that were like example prompts and stuff like that. I don't think, you're exactly putting something in Chat GPT, turning around and just handing it over to somebody necessarily, but it is good for kind of just getting like a, what are 5 things that, are affecting credit unions today, something like that. I can start to get you thinking anyway.
I love to use it as like a development partner, like not to do a whole task, but like to help understand different pieces of things that I want to do. So like, hey, I have fields that are like this and I'm trying to look at it this way, like format it out, and then you can kind of replace things from a Tableau standpoint, at least, because I'm not in there enough to what Clarence was saying before. It's like you remember something you're trying to do and then you don't do it for a little bit and then you go back to it. And if you're not doing it every day, which is something I found as a credit union user was always the case, I find it to be really helpful for that like refresher reminder, because I kind of knew what I did, but helps that way.
It seems like the thing where you have to have some good baseline knowledge of what you're asking it for.
Yeah.
We had someone that wanted access to the data warehouse and they said they didn't need to know how to do SQL because they would just ask ChatGPT to write the code. And I was like, yeah, but you need to know enough to know when ChatGPT gives you a crap answer. And if you have no knowledge of it, you won't know that it's a starting point and not the end point.
I think that's a really good way to put it, Dana. Yeah, I wouldn't have it, be writing, my emails one-to-one for me and just shooting them off by any means. I think, you really have to add that personalization and, be the editor, be the reviewer of what you get. But it can be a useful tool. I was able to sign up, get the free version. I haven't signed up for the premium or anything like that. And it's been a cool tool. So if you haven't checked it out, you can go just like Google, Chat GPT account, sign up and throw a couple prompts at it. It is interesting to see what you get back. So so thanks for jumping in and sharing how you've participated with that. So this question, I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. I'll leave it here for just a minute or two. So this is, we talked about the use cases at the credit union, but are there any specific like Tableau features that you'd be interested in discussing or exploring at, future user groups? We can kind of like, those are two of our biggest things that we can do, right? We can talk about what dashboards you're building or, what type of features, what's in the latest update. For example, what new tools we have. So if there's any that come to mind, feel free to share more about prep, how folks are using it. I know we had, someone talking about just recently in the use case question, they said, I just found Tableau Prep. How did I live without this? And Amy, what's your experience with Tableau Prep?
I really enjoyed it. I have made a lot of POCs in it that took like 4 hours to make that we ended up productionalizing, and that would take like 3 months to productionalize. So I've found it really useful as like a POC tool on our side. But
same, like useful to do something when like you kind of need to be a little bit engineer, like, but not like you don't need to know how to do engineering things. So for me, it was like creating surveys, especially because that's not like our bread and butter data, but wanting to look at it. Prep was really, you could do some of the pivot stuff, right in Tableau, but the prep helps you add a little bit more when it's complicated.
I put the comment in there about how did I ever live without it. It's my private servant, and it does everything I tell it to do exactly the way I tell it to do it, and I love it. I love being able to marry lots of different data sources together outside of Tableau Desktop. That way, by the time I get to Tableau Desktop, it's all nice and clean, and which I guess is what Tableau Prep is meant for, right? But to be able to take PSU flat files and Alchemy user login information and marry that with DNA information and make this nice, beautiful flat file that is just so easy to manipulate and do things with. We used that to create, we started out using it to create the flat file that we feed into our email communication platform for marketing every day. Has a lot of nice aggregated fields, true false fields, cashback checking, has a mortgage, all of these things. But we found that file is so useful as a start off point for so many other things that we use it for outbound calling lists and criteria. We use it for a ton of different things. So it is nice that Tableau Prep compiles that for us every day.
That's really cool, Carrie. I appreciate you sharing that and jumping in saying, hey, that was my question,
yeah.
telling us about how you're using it. So that's
I'll
great.
admit it.
Perfect. Well, that's what, that's what the user group's here for. Love hearing those experiences. Maybe something you'd be interested in sharing, more about in the future, hopefully, fingers crossed. We'd love to have, some of you all participate. And if you even just have one slide that you want to share in the future and talk about something that's like really interesting to you, or you want to get some feedback on, maybe you've built a new trash board and you're just kind of like trying to pick some people's brains. Looks like we've got a couple other, ideas here, like how do we think about executive dashboards? Is that something you already know all your KPIs that you want to track? Is that something you have to do requirements gathering for? I'm sure I'm sure building the dashboard, isn't necessarily even the hardest part sometimes. It's just knowing, what you're going to put in there, how you're going to format it, and, bring all the data in for that. So I know we're about time, so we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. So I'm just going to kind of like jump back to this view for us real quick. So originally we did plan on, doing some sort of like meetup at Tableau conference. I know we had some people, saying like, hey, I'm probably not going this year. So it would be, I want to be mindful of that, not having something that isn't accessible to the majority of people, right? But if anybody is going and you'd like to, grab coffee with Jess or something like that, feel free to reach out to us. It's a great opportunity to meet up in person if you're out there. So we'll go back and we'll kind of work on this. We're thinking something around that kind of like April, May timeframe to get everybody back together. So I just wanted to say, thank you all again for joining. If anybody has any parting thoughts, feel free to jump in. You'll see, my name and my email attached to the user group itself. I'll send out emails. And if you ever want to, share something, hey, here's a screenshot I have, I just wanted to kind of, get some feedback on this thing that I'm building, then we'll incorporate that into the next user group. But I really appreciate, all of you joining today, for participating, coming off mute and, saying hi and sharing everything. I think that really makes it a better experience for everyone. So thanks again. Any final thoughts?
Ditto. Thanks so much for participating, everyone. This is exactly what we were hoping it would eventually get to. And Devin and I talked about how we were going to baby step it and be okay with some awkward silences if we had to. And as always, you all blew us out of the water. So thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for getting us all together.
Yeah, thank you. I
second
really
that.
enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll see you again in a couple months. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Look forward to it.
Bye.
Have a good day now.